And I think that's something that can be really special and helpful to think of, is like, when I let my light shine and I show you, hey, it's safe for you to shine. And not only is it safe, but like, I want you to shine. And we can, that there's that ripple effect of support that comes from that. And also remembering that we aren't all starting at the same place. And so if we have something to give it. And if someone maybe needs a hand lent out, to be the source of that love and help someone rise.
Welcome to EnVibe Live Conversations with Amy Parker and Cheryl Dunn. By tuning in, you are joining a community that will inspire you to increase balance, wellness, and joy in your life. We'll offer expert information and insightful conversations to help us on our journey to live more EnVibe. For more information and articles, remember to also check out our website at envibelife.com. That's EnVibelife.com. We're grateful that you're here.
Hello and welcome to the EnVibe Life Conversations podcast with Amy Parker and Cheryl Dunn. We're joined today by Taylor Ellison. Many of you in Austin are going to recognize Taylor as the co-host of We Are Austin, the co-creator of Austin After Hours, all on our local CBS station in Austin. But something that Cheryl and I have gotten to know as we've gotten to know Taylor is she is also an advocate of living a wellness lifestyle, or living, as we like to say, EnVibe. So we're super excited to start this conversation and to get to know Taylor a little more and to talk about what living EnVibe means to her. So thank you, Taylor, for being here and joining us this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Not only am I grateful to be with you, but I'm honored to be considered living the EnVibe life. Yay! That is a good life, and one I will happily take. I also feel like I've just got to set the stage here. I am burning what has become my favorite candle that I got at y'all's Nourish retreat from the lovely ladies at Shock Therapy. I mean, summer nights.
Which one is it?
It's sensual and it's called Summer Nights. And I didn't even, when I bought it, I literally told her, I was like, this smells very sensual. And she was like, well, yeah, that's on the candle. I just said that. I just literally thought it smelled sensual. So it was good to know that I had my sense down.
But I got Cheryl Russ is one of our favorite people we've met in a long time. She's just great.
Totally. She is so special. And I was so grateful to meet her at y'all's amazing Nourish retreat, which I'm still enjoying and distilling some of the awesome messages that came that day. But it's lovely to be with you guys. Real talk though, like who has sweatpants on below the camera? Because I definitely do.
I'm wearing hole-in jeans, but I have on my Ugg slippers almost every single time we're sitting here doing anything.
Yeah, I have some big wide loose pants that are super comfy and Birkenstocks.
And that is why we just have gratitude for Zoom, because it's just up. And I mean, you guys both have me beat because I do not have shoes on at all. I'm living that barefoot life and I'm loving it.
I totally agree. I think it's awesome. There was that little window when quarantine very first started and I was doing a ton of Zoom stuff. And I was like, I don't really want to put on makeup. Yes. And I felt like I had to because it made me feel better. You know, it's like, put it on because you're seeing yourself all day long.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing now, though. I feel like I wear the exact same thing every day. And I don't know if it's just because my surroundings are so much the same every day. And I'll even buy a new t-shirt or a new sweater or something. And I still walk into my closet every morning and think, I'm putting on the same thing I wear every day.
Welcome to my life.
I completely understand that. The quarantine uniform is just a go-to, and that makes complete sense. But let me tell you, I tried putting on like pants with a real button and zipper the other day. I was not having it. My body was like rejecting. It was like, no, this is too tight. There are seams in these pants. Not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like for the last 17 years, I've been wearing only spandex. Studio. And so now a couple days a week, I have to put on real clothes. It keeps me in check.
Yeah, it does feel like a different way to go about your day. That's for sure.
So I have a question. We
Let's
see
do it.
you putting yourself out there and interviewing these people. And I feel like now more than ever, newscasters, new media, or news media, all of that is kind of being attacked a little bit as far as constantly putting out fear and, driving things in a negative and always telling the bad stories. But you don't do that. I feel like you really look for the positive and put the positive out there. Have you noticed what I'm saying as far as like maybe newscasters are getting a bad rap, or that some are going towards the more negative? And are you making a conscious effort to not do that?
Interesting. Great question. I got to tell you, it's fun, like being in the hot seat. The roles have reversed here today. And I'm like, oh, I don't ask the questions. Okay. It's actually quite hard to be in this seat. Maybe I shouldn't say hard. It's just not as natural for me. How about that? I feel like the answer to your question has a couple of different layers. So I'll just dive in and then you guys tell me when to stop talking, because that's usually the biggest problem. But the first thing that comes to mind is that I'm in a unique position. Our show is a lifestyle show. And so we do have a different type of content that we're sharing. And it's also been really, it's been a special experience, and one that I have not taken lightly over the last year, is the opportunity to come into people's homes in the morning, try to bring some light and levity amid all that is going on, and knowing that we have an opportunity to connect with people and share joy and cultivate joy. And that doesn't mean disregard all that's going on in the world. It's just also honoring that there might be a window in your day where this news also might help juxtapose some of the things that you are being exposed to. And so, I'm grateful for all of our outlets and people providing important information, vital information. And then I also have always thought it's interesting, and I feel very fortunate to be in a role where we get to share Austin and unite people around Austin. And in particular, even like with my late night show, that was the what's the word I'm looking for? The common thread through that was to share inspiring stories and share stories of people going after their dreams, or moving past fear, or overcoming adversity, in hopes that anyone watching would see, well, if they can do it, I can do it too, or at least I could try, and just kind of plant those seeds of, oh, I wonder what that might look like in my own life. And so that's kind of how I feel about all of it, is that our conversations that happen in a moment or in a show, we never know what seeds are planted from them. So if we can show up every day and try to be a bright light, or spark some sense of positive emotion, then, that was an hour well spent. But so I hope that answers that one part of your question. And then the other thing you asked is if I think about stuff, like, or how do I think about it? And the truth is, my goal is to be living with as much intention in every facet of my life as possible. And so trying to be thoughtful, really intentional living. And that starts the moment I wake up. That's not just in television. That's how I'm spending my days, my hours, what words are coming out of my mouth, what energy am I emitting out into the world around me. And so I would like to say, yes, I am. I do think about things simply because that's what I am trying to do.
Well, and I think both of those answers tie together, because if you're starting each broadcast, each day with an intention, that is what you're putting into the world. And you never know where that's going to go or how it's going to be led. If it's coming from the right place that we would think is a divine place or a spiritual place, then it is exactly what you're supposed to be doing, even if you don't understand why.
Well, I like what you just mentioned about the divine, because it's definitely a big part of my life. And because the largest percentage of my day is spent interviewing other people and in conversation, one way that I kind of get centered and into alignment before I start any conversation is I do some breathing. I check in with myself, just kind of feel where I am, get rooted here. And then I ask myself, how would you talk to God? And then that's the framework I try to go into that conversation with, is because each of us are this embodiment of divinity, right? Or at least in my belief system. And so I'm like, if you were pushing admit on a waiting room to God, how would you talk right now? and that's how I try to approach each conversation, so that there is a level of honoring what anybody's bringing to the table that day, whether I agree with it or whether it's my area of interest. It's somebody is interested in it, and it's your love language. It's your passion, even if it's not my passion. Just honoring that energy that you're bringing into the conversation from your side of, well, the Zoom room now, but so that is, that's been a really centering exercise for me.
That's huge.
Well, that just changed EnVibe Life conversation. We do try to start with intention. And sometimes we don't have one now, burn one of my Cheryl's candles.
Oh, yes.
When we're starting, we've been doing opening the throat chakra. And
cool.
That intention, when we start, we have a different candle with intention burning in the room now also. But how would you talk to God? I love that. Mm-hmm. So have you always known you wanted to go into broadcasting? Where did your journey begin?
Well, that's a circuitous one. How much time do you have? Well, I have always loved talking to people, and that is one of my love languages, is connecting with people and having hopefully conversations of substance and sharing time and relating over our shared humanity. And so that has always been a facet of my life to one extent. I want to backtrack for a second on the last topic we were talking on, just to give a little frame of reference and a resource that you or your listeners might enjoy. That question, how would I talk to God? The impetus for that came after I read the book Conversations with God. Have y'all read that?
I haven't read it, but I know.
That reading is my favorite. I mean, I used to live at the library. The second floor of Book People, conveniently the self-help section, is where I spent many a days. But that book really triggered that in me, is like seeing everything as an aspect of the divine, and how can I translate that into day-to-day conversations. And so I just wanted to make sure I mention that, because the book inspired that, but it also could be a good resource for y'all or anyone listening who might be.
We'll link it in our show notes too, for anyone who wants to find it.
That's great.
But yes, so the television aspect is one expression of the things I love. And, we can change so many times over the course of our life, and there are many outlets to express, but something that I have always connected with and desired to be a part of is facilitating conversations in this way. And, probably since a young age, the talking has been a big part of my life. Teachers could tell you that, parents could tell you that. And in high school, I was one of our news anchors for Chaos. If there, any Maroons out there, loyal forever. And that was, something I enjoyed immensely. And I'm always looking for the intersection of what is bringing me joy, and then what is in service to the world, and where can I help others find joy? And then where those meet, like in the little Venn diagram where the overlap happens, that's what I try to tap into. And so it is such a source of happiness for me to get to try to connect with people and cultivate joy for them. And then I also, hope to believe that often those conversations can do that for other people. And so when we really tap into what energizes us, and then also be in service. So that's kind of where the love of TV and broadcast and truly videos. I mean, since I was 16 years old, actually I was 15, I took a video camera everywhere, would make videos all the time. Also against my better judgment, by the way, 15-year-olds, we don't need to document any of that. Like, what were we thinking? Thank God we didn't have social media then, but so it's funny when you look back and you start to connect the dots that at the time were just seemingly random. And so, but I didn't go to school for broadcast, or I didn't graduate with a degree in broadcast. And so I kind of took a meandering, less than typical route, but truly I'm really grateful for it, because all the experiences that led to this point have informed and enriched my understanding of people in the world around me. And I think it's important to remember we don't have to take this like straight line, straight path. That's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love efficiency and I'm all for A to B, but sometimes it's like A, C, D, 9, 5 = B. So
awesome. One of the things too that I think I've kind of heard you saying, or I think that you embody, is, you come in with the intention of how do we talk to God, right? Mm-hmm. Or what am I going to say? Realizing and putting in your awareness that the person in front of you has that spirit within them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other piece of that is that also means we have to accept that it's in us.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Do you ask that same question when you're speaking to yourself?
Yeah.
So
And
beautiful.
I think that
Yes.
you embody that with when you talked about the circle diagram and where they all meet in the middle and that joy piece right there, you found your inner joy and your inner peace in order to recognize it in others and pull it out and bring it out. And I think that's a gift you have is drawing that out of people, just from watching your stuff. It's just, if you want to watch it, because you're happy, you draw it out in the others, they become happy. Even if it's not a topic that I'm interested in, I want to watch it.
That means so much. Thank you. Truly, I can't imagine a kinder compliment, and one that is so sincerely felt and received. I am receiving that fully. And thank you. That really is so special. And
the conversation Cheryl and I were having
right before
5 minutes before you came into our Zoom room was about receiving.
Yeah.
Really?
Working on receiving.
Seriously. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, look at our angels just in commune, just giving us those little synchronicities. I love that. To that point, I feel so grateful for the level of self-acceptance and self-love that I have been able to tap into in my life. And I have been keenly aware since a young child that a huge part of that is the environment my parents created as I was growing up. I was told and supported, fostered to be myself, love myself, whatever that looked like. And there was there was just an environment where I was really encouraged to express myself. I mean, you should see the things I wore as a child. And I can't believe they let me out of the house. But, I've always been very aware of how impactful that was. And I do feel a sense of I have all this love in me that I want to pour out into the world in a way that is like you said, like sharing the things that I know, and also finding balance, because you can over pour and your cup can get super empty. And so that's been a big part, I would say, of my adult life, is finding that balance and remembering what is and is not my responsibility. And really what's most important is that we cultivate our own health, our own peace, and then let our light shine so that we're showing others what it looks like to shine. Right. And it's similar, but different, but it reminds me of one of my favorite analogies or sayings or whatever. And I'm going to totally butcher it because this is like my 90th Zoom of the day. So brain is mush, but just that expression about, a flame, a flame, when it lights a candle, the flame doesn't go out. When we light another, we don't lose our light. We're just spreading the light. And I think that's something that can be really special and helpful to think of, is like, when I let my light shine and I show you, hey, it's safe for you to shine. And not only is it safe, but like, I want you to shine. And we can, that there's that ripple effect of support that comes from that. And also remembering that we aren't all starting at the same place. And so if we have something to give it. And if someone maybe needs a hand lent out, to be the source of that love and help someone rise. And so there's that, when I talk about understanding like the environment that my parents created for me, and also knowing, it doesn't have to be your parents, like parent figure, family, friends that are family, just what are you surrounding yourself with? And so that was instilled in me very early on. And so with that, I also do feel this sense of like, wow, I see how impactful that is. How do I help create that, or just give that kind of love back into the world?
Do you think joy can be a behavior that people can choose and learn?
Good question. I'm like, what does behavior mean again? You guys are getting technical terms on me.
All right. So I'll approach it from another way. One of our early podcasts I think it was called Choose Joy. Mm-hmm. And this is what we talked about, that it can be a conscious decision you make to move towards joy and happiness. And first of all, it's okay to give yourself permission to do that. Mm-hmm. And it can really change your life. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have hard times at all. It's how are you going to face them, and how are you going to react to them? And I think this started with a premise we were talking about, because a lot of our personal, just the two of us talking podcasts come from conversations we've had. That's why it's called Conversations. About the fact that happy people want other people to be happy. If you're happy, you're not trying to bring someone else down. You want that for others. And so, yes, if you start on your own happiness and joy, you're going to amplify that in the world because you're going to bring it to other people and wish it upon other people as well.
Totally. And that mindset is one I really subscribe to as well, is that, there's enough success to go around. There's enough love to go around. There's enough joy. And to the beginning of that question, it's funny. I don't even think I've mentioned this to y'all, but I have been working on writing a book for the last year or two. And eventually I will move past my own walls and insecurities and get it finished. But it is all,
by the way.
Yes. And it's actually all about that. And that idea of moving towards joy. And commonly, and you and y'all, we've kind of talked about this before, but sometimes, or a common question I get is like, are you always happy? Are you always this? Are you always that? And I mean, the truth is obviously, no, we're humans. We're not supposed to be like one thing all the time. But for me, where I focus my energy is what is the time for me to move back into love? So it's like, I get out of balance. I get out of alignment. I am angry. I let myself feel all of that. I punch pillows. I yell at the top of my lungs. You may have seen me on Mopac yelling in my car. I mean, that's a thing. And then I say, okay, what'd you say?
That's a thing for all of us. Mopac.
Yes. And then it's like, how swiftly, and I don't even want to imply speed because it's not speed. It's just like what does the path back to alignment look like? And so, yes, give yourself the space to feel it all. And then also know it's in my hands to pull myself back to that place that is center, that is joy. And to know that it's always in motion, right? We're on this continuum. And sometimes we're going to be able to access like deep, resounding joy. And sometimes we're going to be able to access, what? I got out of bed and put my shoes on today. And that's an accomplishment for me today. And so it's just going to look so many different ways in the different seasons of our life. And that's why I am a big proponent of just giving ourselves tremendous amounts of grace. And when we were talking before about what we do for ourselves, we're able to do for others. I think that's why I care so much about these topics, because when we turn inward and we go back to the root and the source, it's like, if I can give myself compassion, then I show up in the world with more compassion for you and my neighbor and my parents and the strangers. And we're starting in a completely different place. But if I have discord within me, how can I show up in the world and be expected to not have that too?
Well, and we're all going to have some discord within us because we learn from contrast, or we learn from
yes.
But I think the key is if you can be grateful for the lessons, even when they're really hard, understand that you're receiving a lesson and then move on from that. It's how you frame the setbacks, not do you have them.
Yeah. And, it's multifaceted too, because there are so many degrees of hardship and lesson. And so just honoring, that there are so many challenging, hard things. And for me in my own life, I look at things like, what are the pearls of wisdom that I can pull from this, but also honoring that we're all coming with really different experiences. And so I would say, the part that I believe fully is in everybody's ability to rise, in someone's strength, and that their capacity, we all have this inherent worth and potential and value. And I feel like that's what we, so commonly see is everybody is so hard on themselves. And it's like, I love to remind people, like, there's nothing about you that needs to change for you to already be worthy of love and self-acceptance. And like, you just are, you come into the world perfect. And then, we get to tweak and fine tune, and we all have things we can work on, but it's not like you have to get this resume of things that make you worthy. And then I get to receive love.
Right.
It's like,
I love that. You know what? If there's one thing let's put out right now. If you're listening to this and you don't believe you can do or get through or handle something, the three of us sitting here have unwavering confidence in you to do that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That just gave me goosebumps. And I love that you said that, because that is the power of energy, right? It's like sometimes we need someone else to invoke that in us and remind us of our own strength and mirror it to us. And because sometimes we're like down in the trenches, and we need someone to remind us of our capacity.
So Amy's heard this before, but every morning as I drop my children off at school, the last thing they hear me say as they ignore me out the door is I say, choose joy. Choose joy, right? Because especially my youngest is like, I want to go to school. I don't really need school. I could drop out in 5th grade and have this all, right? And
be a YouTuber.
Hey, it's 2021. You really never know, but I'm not encouraging that. Get your degrees, everybody.
He's working towards it. That's his thing. I'm like, well, you know what? You have to go to school, because if you don't, they'll put mom in jail. Right. And that's not an option. But I just, as they walk out the door, I'm like, choose joy. And sometimes I get an eye roll and sometimes I get a giggle, that sort of thing. But I just kind of want to instill, which I think this is the conversation we're having, is that, there can be difficult situations, and and sometimes we go into things and we don't want to be there, and we don't want to do this and we don't want to do that. But you can make a conscious choice to find the positive, to look for the things that bring you happiness. And, some days that's harder to find than others. But like you said, might be the day that, guess what? I got up and put my shoes on and they matched.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. Well, and I really appreciate and value that reminder that you give your kids when they get out of the car. And another way I kind of like to think about that too, especially with young people, is also instilling that curiosity and that sense of freedom and initiative. And like with my niece, for instance, when I'm over there in the mornings, and we'll kind of do like a gratitude power hour together and get amped about stuff. And then I also enjoy the approach of like, I wonder what you'll choose today. Oh, you have so many options. I wonder what you'll choose. And then really just kind of like even that freedom to explore the contrast on their own can be a thing. And those are ideas I learned from my teacher, Alyssa Mailhorn, who I just owe all the good things in my life. I'm like always go back to Alyssa.
Ours too.
Yes, exactly.
Our teacher too.
Yeah. But that was a concept I loved listening to the way she approaches those conversations too. Is just that choice, because then it's empowerment. Then it's coming from an empowered. Oh, I chose joy. And I got there on my own, and wow, that does feel good. And sometimes you have to try on all the other emotions before you get to joy. And I also like that you said, choose joy, because my whole life, everything, passwords, combinations to things. Nobody go try signing my email right now, please. But like, it's typically like, I choose joy 2458. And you can just plant these little reminders everywhere. I have sticky pads everywhere. Just reminding us, visual cues, kind of like mantras too. And sometimes I feel like those tools can start to feel redundant, or like people just hear that a lot. But the reason they're repeated often, or at least what's true in my own life, is because they have been effective. And they don't have to be these grandiose gestures, right? Like if we're forcing ourselves to do stuff in a place of rigidity, it's not as powerful or potent as when we're just letting ourselves do it. And so people often say, like, do you keep a gratitude journal or whatnot? And the answer is yes. And I freaking love my gratitude journal, and it's beautiful. But there are also days where my gratitude journal is me waking up and laying in bed for 45 minutes, just saying out loud the things I feel grateful for. And not, if that day I don't feel like getting up and putting pen to paper, that's okay, because the energy is still there of me taking time and quiet time without having to force myself into a certain practice when the energy that day is more me making myself do it than doing it from a place of excitement.
Well, I think once you develop that relationship with the divine within yourself, then the next level is appreciating that what it wants each day is different, and that's okay.
Girl, you can say that again, because 2021, I feel like a different person every 30 minutes. It's like, and now I just let the day decide and the energy decide. And I don't even, I'm like a recovering type A. I used to love plants, love writing stuff down. Now it's just like, I wake up and I'm like, what do we got today, God? Because it's a wild ride.
Me too. So I also have little notes all over the place, and Cheryl knows this. If you're in my office, you'll see them. And one of the ones I had for over a year was, Dear God, thank you for change. That came after a meditation. I took it down the other day because I was like, okay, there's been a lot of it.
That's true.
It's like, let's just pump the brakes on the life changes in my world for a minute. Yeah.
I mean, even when they're good, sometimes you need a breather. And they've all been good, but sometimes you need to process.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to just in general, like on a personal cycle season level, there are seasons of our life. And that's just a reminder that I love from nature. That's a reminder I love from my dad, is just being really attentive to the rhythms of the earth and realizing, like, a rose is not blooming 365 days a year, and roses have thorns. Okay. So we've all got a little thorn in our world, and it can be, really empowering to just give yourself that freedom to just be. And I think that that's probably what I would say is one of the most apt tools in my tool belt, is just allowing myself to be and releasing expectation of what that's going to look like in a certain given point. And just to be very clear, I mean, I am no expert. I am not perfect at these things. I have not mastered any of this. This is the work of your entire life. I am a student of life. And so I'm just constantly learning and also tweaking and changing. And if there's a practice that a couple of years ago made sense to me that doesn't anymore, it's like, well, that it served its cycle. And now I lovingly release that without the need to like hang on to stuff that doesn't fit anymore. And that goes for friendships, relationships, people, like we don't have to make everything fit, because we're not designed to stay one size or one way our whole life.
I love that. That's so true. And I just think that saying that sentence right there might give someone the permission to be like, you know what? That's right. I can move on from whatever this is that doesn't feel right anymore. And I think that's powerful and huge, because I do feel like a lot we try and force, that square box into that round hole, and it doesn't work. Right.
Well, and thanks for saying that. I definitely learned that through experience. So there were some clunky years of my life. And that's why I feel so strong about that idea, is I feel like in my early 20s, I went through a series of experiences where I kind of just took a step back and realized I was like, it's okay to change my mind. But I don't think anyone ever told me that it was okay to change my mind about my job, my life, my degree. And I'm not saying it was someone else's responsibility to tell me that, but I think we, from a young age, think that like success is measured by the time it takes us to get somewhere, or the letters behind our name, or like all these things. We're really like, you might change your mind a million times, and that's okay. And you're not starting back at square one, because you have all these beautiful experiences that have come with you to get you there. And same for me, I always thought I was going to kind of go down one path that I then deviated from greatly, and then had to really work through like what that said about me and what that meant. And then finally came to this place of feeling very liberated when I was like, oh, this is okay. I'm okay that I changed my mind. And that's actually just a part of life.
I love it. This has been such a great conversation. I feel like, Amy and I both went into it going, wow, we could go this way and we could talk about this, and we could go this way and we could talk about that. But I feel like everything that you have said has been such a tool for our audience and a great jumping off path for people to really, explore their own self-help, right? And how we can all really work towards being better people. And then it's not something that there's not an end point to it. We're all working on it, and we're all working on it for the rest of our lives. And so and you're a beautiful example of that. And I feel like this conversation and everything that you've put out has really embodied that. And just, I think it explains why people want to watch you.
Well, it's extremely kind. And not only am I grateful to be here with y'all, but I'm grateful to y'all for fostering these types of conversations. And I really appreciate y'all creating this space to do that, because it's just like what you just said, the more conversations we have and the more you show someone, hey, you are just lovely just as you are, that's a ripple effect. So we're just putting little drops in the love bank.
Yes.
We hope so.
Yes.
I do think we ought to. Everyone knows of you as being all about Austin and in Austin. Give our listeners a couple of your favorite current Austin things to do, places to visit, maybe, socially distanced acceptable, or places that are opening up now.
Or what's the secret that we don't know?
Oh man. Oh my goodness.
We don't know anything.
I know, we don't. That's right. We don't.
Well, I got to think about this. You know, what's so funny about that question is like, not a lot is changing about what we're doing. I mean, like we're still doing the same things we were doing with my mom dropping us off in a minivan in 7th grade. It's now just 100,000 more people are also doing it. So, it's like, we're all at Barton Springs. We're all at Unplugged at the Grove, or RP Shady Grove, actually. But you know what I'm saying? It's like the same activities. We're just getting to share it with more people, which is a really special thing. And I think it's neat to celebrate that all of these people have gravitated here for a quality of life that they saw and admired. And so how neat that we then get to try to share that. And this is a mild deviation to your question, but I do think it's important to mention is that, the responsibility is on all of us to grow as a city in a thoughtful way. Wow. And so as we continue to change and grow, it's like, how do we preserve the character of the city that we love so much and also be an open, inclusive place that really stands by the reasons people wanted to come here in the first place? And so that's kind of like what comes to mind when you ask about life in Austin. It's thinking about like, oh, how do we preserve this personality, this soul of our city and share it in a way that is open. But let me think about some current favorites. I'm like, what do I even do? Do I even leave my house? A lot of meditating. Growing up, Barton Springs was always a favorite. Zilker Park. I love live music and patios. And, pre-COVID, I was definitely known to be on the stage at Egos once or twice or thrice, which for anyone listening that doesn't know is a karaoke bar. And I have shut it down there more of the times than I would care to admit. I can just always be happily found eating guacamole and drinking margaritas somewhere. So, I'm like a pretty textbook Austinite. As I say that out loud, I'm like, well, that's not very original, but it's the truth.
Well, it's so good. Why change it?
and that's the other thing is like it wasn't until I left Austin for a few years that I was like, oh wait, every restaurant isn't local, and where are your entrepreneurs and where's your that is the spirit of the lifeline of our city. And that's just what I love so much is that people can come here, they make their dreams reality, they go from a food truck to a brick and mortar, they launch their passion project, and just to see that come to life is so special. So if it's local, I'm there for it. And that can look a lot of different ways depending on the day of the week.
Well, not that Austin needed a lot more advertising these days, but that was just a really good advertisement for it.
So we like to ask all of our guests one final question before we come off is, what is one thing you do on a daily basis to kind of keep yourself in balance or in vibe?
Mm-hmm. In vibe. I like that. Well, does a can of whipped cream count? Because that happens on a daily basis.
That happens on a daily basis at my house too.
I am like a sugar-loving fiend. Like any of my best friends know, I'm like a walking Willy Wonka candy store.
Me too.
Yes, I knew I liked you, ladies.
Here.
Yes.
She comes running like, yes, whipped cream is out.
She shares with her dog too.
Oh. Well, good for you for sharing. I'm not over here sharing with anybody. I think, one of the most powerful healing modalities in my life has been connecting with nature. And that's just getting outside and fresh air. And I think sometimes people overlook the simplicity of these amazing, powerful tools all around us. And oftentimes with the private clients that I work with and when they're seeking, ideas about things, I'm like, have you been outside today? Have you taken your shoes off? Have you just stopped to breathe? And sometimes it's just the slowing down. So I would say it kind of goes back to that in terms of just stopping a million times throughout the day to check in with myself. I am in a constant conversation with God, with myself, with my angels. And that is, I like to think of it as like not creating a life where we have to try to escape from or find balance, but just that our life is balanced. And I think that comes from that constant, like, how am I feeling? What is this? Am I rushing through this? Could I slow down? Could I enjoy this more? Like the second I feel rushed, I'm also like a textbook Aquarius, so this makes sense. But like rushing is my least favorite feeling, because as soon as we're in a hurry, we've disconnected from the present. And like, that's all there is. It's just this beautiful moment. And so I really love just to slow down, sometimes to a glacial pace at the expense of like my friends or people trying to go somewhere. But that is the truth, is just slowing down to me can be extremely powerful. And I mean that in a literal sense. Like, how fast am I moving? Am I even tasting my coffee when I drink it? Am I smelling this candle? Just like really anchoring into the moment.
Oh, I love it.
That's great.
Well, I can't wait for our audience out there to be inspired by your energy and to let it all float out there among them. And so thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, likewise, this is such a blessing. And like I said, thank you for the opportunity to be with y'all and just for what you're doing. Cheers, ladies. I love it.
Thank you for listening to EnVibe Live Conversations. For more information and to join our community, be sure to check out our website at envibelive.com. We look forward to sharing with you.